Richmond Tettey-Logah. I'm a telecommunication engineer, and I've been working in the ICT industry for over the past 12 years. I'm currently working with Rio Tinto, a mining company here in Australia, and provide level 3 operational support. But before this, I was formerly in the production telecommunication strategy and architecture. It's really exciting when we talk about ICT and the potential that the workforce can leverage, especially around times like this, when globally we're looking at the impact of COVID-19 and global economies are struggling to find ways around it. So today, hopefully, we would be able to look at the dynamics that COVID-19 presents to the workforce and how we can use information communication technology going forward. So today, what we'll be looking at is just briefly touch on what IT and ICT are, the slight distinction between the two of them. We will look at the workforce within the global market. We'll also be looking at the dynamics of COVID-19 to the workforce, various ICT tools that the workforce can leverage in today's market. We also look at business resiliency and the potentials that cloud and virtualization bring forth to the business continuity plan. We also look at new trends in ICT that businesses can look at to improve productivity. As a matter of fact, some of these are predicted to be quite disruptive, and I think if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, you cannot afford not to be looking at some of these technologies and how you could also leverage them to maintain your competitive edge. Then we would look at concluding with how the workforce is evolving, or how the workforce can evolve around these dynamics. Now, when we look at IT, a lot of the time we use IT and ICT interchangeably, but depending on the environment that you find yourselves, for example, for those of us in the industry, we tend to notice that there is a very subtle difference. So when we talk of IT, we're talking mostly on computing infrastructure, and then they are interconnecting networks. So we look at the native computers and all the networking to get them to talk or communicate with each other. We look at technologies to store information, to collect the information using native interfaces, and then process the data and present the data within a computing infrastructure, within that framework. But when we look at information communication technology, it's a more broader sense, and it encompasses what we typically understand to be IT. But apart from IT, we also look at telecommunication, such as telephone systems, audio communications, audiovisual communications, such as broadcasts and streaming services. All those fall under the telecommunication systems. We also look at hybrid systems, which encompass the two of them. These days, it's really difficult to define what is a computer. We have computers evolving beyond what we classically know to be a desktop or a laptop. These days, our watches, our cars, we have our phones, we have cameras, we have our home appliances, all embedded with some computing capabilities. So we look at the evolution to the embedded systems and then the Internet of Things, where we try to glean data from almost anything that we would want to derive some form of information or control. Now, I wouldn't be the expert in defining the workforce, as I'm mostly dealing with telecommunication or ICT. But from my perspective, when we look at workforce in the business, we primarily look at the quality of the selection process, that's the HR process in acquiring the workforce and associating the workforce with the business. We look at skill development. Once a workforce has been acquired or personnel have been acquired, how the business is able to continually help the individual to develop their skills. We also look at maximizing the workforce skills and talents to make sure that the business is able to derive the best out of the workforce. We also look at the workforce engagement and interaction with the business. From my perspective, these are areas within which the workforce engages with ICT, and we'll be looking at how this engagement can be improved so that within situations like COVID-19, the business entities of the business bodies can continue to maintain productivity. Now, when we look at COVID-19 and the challenges that it has presented to the business environment, as a matter of fact, the global economies, we all are cognizant, because I believe a lot of people have faced the need to remain at home and stay out of the traditional office environments that most businesses are used to. Now, this has brought a lot of dynamics, and businesses have tried to evolve in order to try and cope, especially when you look at small businesses. Retails are the most affected, and especially businesses that deal with customer interactions, face-to-face customer interactions. It's been nearly impossible to operate. Now, we've seen a lot of the hospitalities moving to online services, e-commerce, making use of delivery services in an effort to evolve and sustain at least some basic profitability that will ensure that the business continues until this pandemic is over. Now, a lot of companies have tried to work around by leveraging on ICT and making sure that employees are able to work remotely from home or from wherever they can, instead of coming to the office. Now, this has brought some challenges, but depending on where you find yourselves, mostly in the developing countries where internet is very accessible in every home. When we look at employees as telecommuters, it's fairly easy for them to have decent internet access from their homes. But when we go to most of the developing countries where data is so expensive or internet is very expensive, definitely this poses quite a lot of challenge to the business resiliency around responding to the COVID-19 uh, challenges. Now, when we look at office environment, as more and more people begin to work from home, there are some challenges that are posed to the office environment as well. Primarily bandwidth access, as more and more people are trying to work from remote locations. There's a lot of strain on centralized services. So if a business has not evolved into having some form of distributed services, and all employees rely heavily on data that is centralized in a head office or in a central location, then either businesses would have to upgrade their bandwidth to cope with the increasing data access from remote locations. Then there's also the need for businesses to look at versatility in the work-life balance of employees. Now that all of a sudden people find themselves working from home, and the fact that they had not actually prepared their families, people with kids, how they tend to balance that work-life environment. It's a bit challenging, and if you've not prepared your family adequately, and this happens, then you realize that you have to be versatile in adjusting and meeting both the family obligations and business demands. Now, what COVID-19 has taught most businesses is that at any point in time, the businesses have to be resilient enough to cope with such disruptions from external factors. And as such, I believe it's time for most businesses to look at the employee engagement, whether we still want to look at time-bound engagement where people are engaged from, say, 8 in the morning to 5 p.m. in the evening on a daily basis, and whether businesses are actually able to derive the best out of employees with that sort of engagement. But I believe at this time, businesses need to look at a more result or timed result engagement basis where employees have the flexibility to deliver as and when it is appropriate for them, as long as they meet the time and value requirements of the business. Then that should be good enough, and I believe that allows people to shift their workloads around their family engagement needs, so that they're able to meet both of them in a more flexible manner. The other thing that we look at is cybersecurity. Now that people are working away from the office, cybersecurity has become a major focus because people are no more within the confines of a protected network environment of the office, where you have all the security apparatus in place. But now people are using all sorts of network. It could be public internet, it could be home networks, and as business organization, you wouldn't know the threats that are available there, and how much employees are exposed. So when we look at some of the IT tools for the work environment or for the workforce, when we look at the selection process, we I believe everyone has applied for jobs, and you present your CV or your resume, you upload it online. But to be frank, if you look at the number of respondents to job advertisements, it's around the thousands, and it's almost impossible for HR personnel to go through all that volume of candidate resumes just to select a few of them to shortlist. So within the selection process, there are a number of tools that HR can make use of, and to clean through people's resumes. Um, these days, there are smart applications out there that HR can use to scan through resumes and look for actually catchphrases and keywords that suit the job advertisement, and based on that, they can shortlist pretty much easily. And what that also means for job applicants is to make sure that their CVs and resumes are properly formatted so that they can be picked by those applications that scan through CVs and the documents. Um, Within this period of COVID-19, um, most interviews definitely will not be face to face, and the ICT again is used here with all the audio visual conferencing facilities out there. Most of business organizations subscribe to their own conferencing tools. Uh, uh, there are quite a number of them there. There is the Avaya, there is the Cisco WebEx, there is the Microsoft Skype for the office, Microsoft Teams, Google Workplace, productivity suites. And there's a whole lot of uh, conferencing facilities that are out there that employees can make use of. Um, then we look at the onboarding process. Once people have made it through, how IT can also help them to settle, especially within this time when employees or new employees cannot go to the office place and meet people face to face. Definitely, they have to rely mostly on ICT tools such as video conferencing to have meetings and interactions with other work colleagues so that they get familiar with the work environment, meet people within their teams, and interact with the people in other teams. So all these are ICT tools that help in the onboarding process. And when we proceed further, when we look at the skill development, um, I believe this when it comes to skill development, there are more. There's more to talk about when it comes to the uh, uh, futuristic technologies. These days, they're no more futuristic. The future has arrived now. So later on, when we touch on those augmented reality and virtual reality, holographic communication, and how they impact the learning environment or the coaching engagement when it comes to employee skill development. Um, but as far as ICT is concerned, there are heaps and heaps of online learning platforms out there um, uh, that employers can leverage. And the most common one I can think of is LinkedIn Learning. But definitely there are so many of them out there that this conference is in no way to advertise any particular one. But I just thought of mentioning LinkedIn Learning because I believe most people here are conversant with LinkedIn, and so people know. But uh, there are so many learning providers or knowledge service providers out there that employers or employees can subscribe to, and all that will help to build their employees' skills or the workforce skills and capabilities. Now, when it comes to working from home or working remotely, as is the case that has been imposed upon the working class by COVID-19, team collaborative tools are something that have become very, very important. The fact that people are no more meeting within an office environment setup means that they have to leverage on ICT to have that collaboration and teamwork going, even though they may not meet face to face. So when you look at team collaboration, for me, what I think is important is to make sure that you have that audio-visual capabilities in whatever tool that is selected. A good quality audio-visual definitely will help improve the team engagement process. We look at screen sharing and control tools. That is definitely a must when it comes to collaborative team collaboration ICT tools. So that people can share their screens or they can share documents and still control or annotate over the documents whilst making presentations. It's very important to look out for these features in collaboration tools. There are the whiteboard presentations, virtual whiteboards where people can have near to the office environment markups and scribblings during brainstorming and idea development. We look at document collaboration, and when it comes to document collaboration, it's one of the most difficult things because for a document being worked on, it's easy to have so many versions flying around that you can't keep track of what is the latest update. So it's important that collaborative tools that have document collaboration should have some version control feature in them and the ability for people to work on the same document concurrently without creating any conflict. So these are all very important things when you look at the collaborative tools that can be used in this environment. Now, just for example, we have the most common tools like the Microsoft Team with Office 365. There are the Google Suites, and there are quite a number of them out there. All these are just basic examples, but there are a lot of tools out there that employers can look at. But for me, the most important takeaway from this is to look at the components or the things within these collaborative tools that you should look out for, that audio-visual conferencing facilities, the ability to have screen sharing and control, the ability to make presentations and have whiteboard features or blackboard features, the ability to have document collaboration. These are the main things for me that employers or the business can invest in to help the workforce remain productive whilst working remotely. The next thing I would look at is when it comes to the workforce productivity. Businesses definitely have to evolve and create a framework where the workforce can be very productive, and depending on what is the actual business of an enterprise, there are so many different frameworks, and there are so many IT tools for these frameworks. Basically, there are ERPs for the work for the business process management, where most ERPs are very customized or customizable, so that you can craft your own workflows that your employees can engage in. Then there are the CRMs where you engage with your external interfaces, your customers or suppliers through the CRMs. So all these are ICT tools that are very crucial in this particular environment where people are working remotely, and making these tools accessible outside of the office environment is crucial at this time. When you look at the more framework-specific tools, like I said, depends on the business of the organization. A business may adapt one or two or several of these frameworks, and there are quite a number of tools, ICT tools, that are developed to address a number of these. There could be a project management tool. There's Microsoft Project. There are quite a number of others there. There are the architecture capability tools also in place that help businesses to develop architectural capabilities and artifacts. There are ITIL and change management tools, help desk and problem management tools if you're a more customer oriented business. Then there are the product development tools if you're a product development organization, and you come up with new products every now and then you might invest in some product development tools to help your business or to help you the workforce engage better. These tools have crafted workflows around those frameworks that makes it easier to manage the business processes within the organization. Now, with COVID-19, I would like to touch on cloud and virtualization. So when we talk of cloud and virtualization, these are technologies that instead of owning your own infrastructure, ICT infrastructure within the business, and owning the risk of operating and managing those infrastructure, you would rather buy ICT as a service from a provider, or you either virtualize those hardware components in a number of, or in a few general purpose or high-end computing infrastructure, and where sometimes the terms cloud and virtualization are used interchangeably. So when you own your own cloud infrastructure, you sometimes we call it like a virtual environment, and we have players like VMware, you have Red Hat KVM, we have OpenStack, which are and other software-defined networking protocols. A business can have large amount of computing and storage infrastructure, and then deliver applications as virtual entities on these virtual on the same physical infrastructure. There, and then on the a bit more extreme side is where you decide not to own any infrastructure at all, and you just buy this infrastructure or rent this infrastructure as services from a different provider. And some of these, we will just touch briefly on some of these providers. To look at cloud, the services that businesses can leverage on now, we have infrastructure as a service, where you still have some control on what applications and how you want to run your applications, and how much compute and storage infrastructure you want to invest or map to your applications. So you just rent compute and storage from a provider. So they typically just give you access to a virtual environment where you have access to a certain amount of processing cycles, and a certain amount of storage, and a certain amount of memory, and then you decide how you want to combine these to deliver your application or your services. Then we have platform as a service, which includes everything within the infrastructure as a service. But as part of it, the software is also provided, that you have some control. So you rent the software, you rent a certain amount of infrastructure, and you have the flexibility based on your own demand. And you also typically manage your applications that are running on these infrastructure. That if there's any problem with the underlying physical infrastructure, or the base software that is being provided, it could be an operating system environment that is being provided as a software. If there is any problem with it, the service provider owns the risk. Then there is software as a service, which is unlike the infrastructure or platform as a service. You have absolutely no control over the hardware or the capabilities of the software. You just purchase software as a service. You don't care how that software runs or how it meets your requirements. All you care about is the outcome of that software, and it's the service provider's responsibility to deliver to specification. Then there are other ones like communication as a service, where you have, instead of having your own office environment, VoIP or PABX system, all those are provided as a service within a cloud environment. So you can have your address system, everything mapped up there for you, and they would take care of interconnecting with other public voice services for you. And that is if you subscribe for such services. Then we have monitoring as a service. So this could be quite varied. So with monitoring as a service, some people, some businesses still have some amount of infrastructure within their business environment, and but when it comes to monitoring those infrastructure, the alerting and running analytics, performance analytics, they could have some APIs tied into some cloud monitoring as a service, and they would connect from the cloud platform and do the health checks and analysis and provide feedback to the business. Now, when it comes to all these virtualization and cloud, what it means for businesses is that the business is able to focus on its core business or its core activities and outsource all these things to expert service providers and just have some SLAs and KPIs in place. And it allows the business to focus and be more productive in what they do. Secondly, and more importantly, when it comes to business resiliency, the amount of resiliency in the investments that have gone into providing scalability and reliability for those cloud platforms. They are incredible. They are far more than most businesses can provide for themselves. So when it comes to accessibility, most of these cloud platforms make it easy for employees to access these applications and these services from anywhere at all that they are, with very little impact on office internet access or headquarters internet access, irrespective of how much data or how much the bandwidth intensive those applications may be. So this is one of the ways, or one of the major ways, that businesses could work around the impact of this COVID-19 if the heavy data applications are sitting somewhere in a cloud, a distributed cloud. Employees can be scattered globally, and they can still work and collaborate. All those tools that we spoke about earlier on could even be hosted in the cloud. There are so many cloud collaborative workforce collaboration tools that can be enabled with a click of a mouse. And the beautiful thing about this is most of them have flexible billing options, and based on your use, based on the number of users and how intensive the demands are. So it's easy to start small, and as your business needs are growing, you could scale up in terms of the infrastructure and in terms of the cost as well. Now, when we look at the trends for the future, when we look at some of the trends for the future, the ICT technology is evolving around these robotics, the Internet of Things, big data analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Now, you would find all these 4 or 5, sometimes machine learning and artificial intelligence. They could be separated, but usually they work very closely together. But as a matter of fact, all of these, it's very common to find them tightly integrated in one way or the other. You would find robotic applications or robotics making heavy use of artificial intelligence, computer vision, machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and they would have so many sensors that produce so much data that would match what we term as big data, and there will be lots of data analytics running on them as well. Now, when it comes to Internet of Things, definitely it's just about sensors and sending information to some central location, generating heaps of data, so much data, and that data is just there, sitting there doing nothing. It has no value, as far as so long as there's no meaning attributed to them. So when it comes to IoT, the main thing is data, and then the intelligence engine that would run on that data and perform some control actions. So all these are future trends, or they are no more future. They are now being used. Their full potential has not been leveraged yet. I doubt we are even 50% through with these technologies. But what we're able to achieve with them is just so amazing. It's so amazing that we would look at how we could leverage some of these things within the business environment to improve or the workforce engagement or to improve productivity. So when we look at artificial intelligence, I know we've spoken about robotics, and when we speak about robotics, what commonly comes to mind is a robot with a human look, with arms and limbs that can do some human activities. But when we talk of robotics, it's more than that. Robotics are probably mostly used in manufacturing, with the car manufacturing and all sorts of manufacturing heavy industry. When it comes to their robotic cars that are self-navigating, moving around and doing all sort of things, different things. But I would like to touch on robotic process automation because it has quite some direct impact to the workforce. It could be good or negative, plus or minus, positive or negative, depending on how you look at it. But when we talk of robotic process automation, we talk about some quite routine tasks that humans would typically be doing, like, for example, data entry, keying data, or usually certain things that when we look at human machine interfaces in computing or in ICT, that you would need human beings to do. But these days, code or software code can be written to simulate that human interface, and all those human entries or the otherwise human input entries can be simulated with intelligent code, right? And the beauty of it is that the level of predictable accuracy and consistency that comes out of these codes is so much more than humans can possibly do. So we have applications that can actually read, for example, scan documents and quickly convert them into soft into like software documents. We have for structured data, even on paper, these RPAs can actually be programmed in such a way that they can extract relevant data into structured forms within the computing environments or within software environments. And now this, as a matter of fact, this is so disruptive that it's predicted Craig Leclerc, who is a business analyst with the Forrester Research, predicts that by the end of 2021, about some 4 million US jobs could be on the line to be replaced by RPAs. Now, when we look at within the business environment, adopting tools like these actually does not necessarily mean that employee redundancy, but it means that the employees can be repurposed for more engaging functions rather than those very routine tasks that that they might otherwise find boring. When you look at other artificial intelligence applications, you think of Apple Siri and but more importantly, we look at Google's DeepMind, which uses deep learning. Now, with Apple Siri, it uses natural language processing, so that it can actually be trained to understand your speech, and it has enough code to act as if it understands what you're saying. But when you look at Google's DeepMind, that one actually uses deep learning. And with deep learning, it's not the difference with deep learning is not using code functions to simulate predicted behaviors, but it's actually learning from raw data. It's actually reading raw data and actually improving based on that raw data. And Google actually published that with this DeepMind AI, they were able to reduce their data center energy use by up to 40%, which is really huge. That's really huge. And so just think of the capabilities to energy saving, especially when it comes to all these manufacturing companies. The energy savings that businesses could do is massive. It's massive, and with all those savings, there are more ways that you could look at engaging your workforce to be more productive. When we look at business applications, now artificial intelligence definitely can really help with business intelligence and analytics. So depending on the kind of business, especially for those who are who rely on large market segments, data such as individual or people's behavioral patterns. Think about how Google is able to predict and give you relevant advertisements based on your search patterns and places you visited, or even look at YouTube suggesting content that you are most likely to like. All those are based on artificial intelligence. So if you have you have access to the same kind of intelligence or the same intelligence engine, the possibilities are limitless. So long as you can feed it with the right amount of data, you can really get very good business insights and analytics that can help push your business forward. We talk of self-driving cars. We talk of fraud detection in banking. And again, we have softwares that are trained with valid bank transactions and some fraudulent bank transactions. And the AI engine is able to learn and then by itself detect fraudulent transactions in real life. Think of e-commerce chatbots these days. You go to a site or even you make a phone call and you speak to an AI engine, and which has natural language processing. So you speak, the bot listens to your speech, converts it into software. It's able to run its code and get some keywords or phrases and advise you where best to get your information or what to do next. And these days, some of them are even able to detect your emotions as you speak and simulate empathies and stuff like that, like human sentiments. We talk about cyber security. Again, that's similar to the fraud detection that I spoke about. But when it comes to networking or when it comes to ICT, these AIs are able to actually look at the data packets that are being sent on the network, analyze it, and perform vulnerability assessment. Instead of these days, the typical virus applications, the way they work by uploading virus signatures and then running network streams of network traffic against those signatures to predict viral activity. Now AIs don't even need any signatures, so they can, based on the packets that they analyze, they can easily tell which packets are likely to be viral or to be dangerous, and raise alerts or even act to prevent it from even progressing. Then we talk about the market. We look at market prediction tools. So based on artificial intelligence, it's easy to really predict the market. For example, what people are likely to buy, products that are going to be in high demand even before they actually get into high demand. So when you want to do your product mix, search intelligence can really help you to maximize your gains. We look at advancing development of medical treatments and medicines through accelerated reading, and with this, there are research works that artificial intelligence software is actually fed with heaps and heaps of medical research data, and definitely these with just enough computing resources, these computers can learn more than the human mind can. So with all these medical researches fed through it, artificial intelligence software is able to run and quickly come up with medical treatments and medicines from all those inputs that is given. Now you can also talk about accounting through automated data entry and reporting, and just think about how you can understand your workforce behavioral intentions and predict bad behavior. This is not just within the workforce, but especially for those who are customer facing. It's easy to predict bad behavior and take appropriate measures much more quickly. For example, you can, if there is a bad actor and camera softwares that can be artificial intelligence that can be getting data from the cameras can easily trigger alerts to security agencies even without the person's interaction. We could have artificial intelligence looking at the aged in aged care facilities, can actually look at and predict medical conditions in advance before they actually happen. Next thing I would like to talk about is the virtual reality or an augmented reality. Now, virtual reality just really makes use of computers to simulate an immersive 3D environment where users can interact with that virtual environment. They can interact with the virtual environment using various sensors. There could be a mix of vision, hearing, touch, smell. So if people are very familiar with these VR headgears, these headgears, Ocular, PlayStation has theirs, and these days even Lenovo has some. There are quite a number of players in the market now. But what this does is it really gives you that immersive world where you could actually see things in 3D. That is, it takes you out of your reality and just gives you that virtual world where you can actually see people, you could see objects, you could see them, you can actually interact with them in that virtual world. Then when we talk of augmented reality is quite similar to virtual reality, but it superimposes that virtual reality in your real world environment. So it's more of you still get to see your environment, but then you have that virtual reality superimposed upon it. Now, in terms of its applications, virtual reality and augmented reality, they can really help when you look at that workforce training and coaching. So especially when it comes to manufacturing, for example, or when it comes to field work where you have an expert in a remote location. Sometimes it's really hard to get coaching or to get remote support. But just imagine that the coach and then the field engineer or technician are immersed in a superimposed augmented reality or virtual reality environment where whatever plant or machinery that is being worked upon and what the technician is actually engaged with, the coach or the remote support person can actually see things in 3 dimensions just as the technician is seeing it, and he can guide the technician in 3D or within that virtual that augmented reality space. Right, they can interact with each other, and the technician can actually see what the coach or the remote support person is pointing at. Right, they can that engagement, the possibilities are limitless. Even when you look at surgical procedures, how easy it is for an expert in a faraway location to be involved in a procedure with some local surgeons. That can be made very possible, and they can see things in 3 dimensional space as if it's just there in front of them. And both the remote person and the local person can interact within that 3D space. We look at it has applications in retail as well, where a showcase for the showcase location, you don't really need such a huge space to showcase all your products. People can come into a small showcase room or office, and they get into this virtual reality world where they can experience all the various products that you have and interact with them in that virtual environment. Then we look at the applicability in construction. Customers can actually view their designs, make changes to their design in that immersive 3D environment or virtual environment. Designs can be rendered in 3D space, and customers can just walk through that simulated environment, suggest changes, and it can be rendered right there immediately. We also look at data visualization. Just imagine the fact that you're walking around a factory and you have all the sensor data superimposed or in an augmented reality, and you can easily look at asset health, get asset information in real time because of that augmented reality. The the use case is limitless. And particularly just looking at this last point here, actually I picked this one, that Airbus actually makes use of its Ramses augmented reality application to simulate the interior of their cabins, and instead of actually prototyping, going through the traditional prototyping, you build, modify, the expense of all that, and the workforce engagement to do all that. So instead of the workforce spending so much time building those prototypes, they can easily render the prototypes in VRs or ARs, and actually make all the modifications to it before they actually come out to build those designs. Just imagine the productivity gain right there. Okay, now with this next one, holographic communication. Before we start, I'll just have a look at these videos. This is the first one is by Hypervision. That's enough there. So when it comes to holograms, they are similar to virtual realities or augmented realities, but is that they do not really need any special headgears to view them. Is that they actually project the objects into three-dimensional space, right in front of your naked eye. So the same use cases for virtual realities and augmented realities apply to holographs. Yeah, just that they do not need that VR gear. And so here it says holograms are similar to VR, but they do not need any special device when looking at the images. And holograms have been used quite a lot in the marketing space for 3D advertising and branding. Something you could see all those billboards. These days, the trend is now is to have these holographic projections instead of those billboards. They have holographic projections in three-dimensional space. And then there's the potential to be used for digital information, preserving multidimensional spatial information with high precision. So if you want to store information about an object like a plant or let's say a human organ or anything, any object at all, how to put everything in descriptive form, or if you put it in 2 dimension, even if you take a picture of it, you lose a lot of information, spatial information. But with holographic data, every information about the object in 3D, in three-dimensional space is preserved, and that object can be rendered almost like the real thing at any time. We talked about holographic communication, which is already tried with 5G by the major players like Vodafone, Ericsson, and Huawei. So Vodafone UK, even if you go to Google and search for Vodafone hologram, you would see quite some videos about the trials where just as I'm making this presentation, you can see me right there in your rooms or wherever you are, just as I am, as if I am physically there. That is a holographic communication that is being powered by 5G now. Let's look at this AT&T presentation. And actually, for this holographic mobile
tests of a 5G holographic capture, and hopefully it looks good. And I'm looking forward to seeing it in about a few minutes, hopefully less.
So you could see that this is a holographic projection of this person. Yeah, so that is holographic communication, and again, its use is pretty similar to the virtual reality. And just imagine that having a holographic conference call where you're actually seeing the team members in 3D as if you were right there in the conference room with them. Okay, so what all these technologies, what do they mean for the workforce? They provide vast potential for the workforce. All these technologies, it means there are so many that can be done. And the beautiful thing is that these applications, they are still being developed right now. At the moment, definitely the technology is not yet there where humans can be replaceable yet. But the worries are that there's going to be lots of redundancy with some of the jobs, and that is a fact that it's going to happen. But it doesn't mean people are going to be unemployed necessarily. But what it means is that the kind of skill sets that are required are changing, and it's important that the workforce evolves just as the technology is evolving. So we cannot afford to let the technology evolve and leave the workforce behind. The workforce needs to evolve along. And going forward, more of those routine tasks are going to be taken over by robotic codes and actual robots and automated processes. So what does this mean for you and I, for the workforce? Which means that we need to evolve into to be more creative thinkers, and the power that these technologies bring to bear means that as a workforce you can easily reinvent yourself. You can easily reinvent yourself. For example, previously, if someone wanted to build a website, you really need to learn all the code needed to do it. But these days, there are frameworks that make you that help you to just build websites just like that without even writing a single code. And I believe with all these AI, artificial intelligence, and all these deep learning, machine learning, and all these technologies coming to bear, what it means is that the workforce can easily reinvent ourselves and venture into new territories. Our our imagination will be our only limit. So, for example, if you want to do architecture, uh, as far as the structural integrity and stuff are concerned, they can be easily analyzed in software without you even knowing so much about what goes on there. So long as you can learn just a little, just enough to to come up with architectural designs. The software or the AI engines can do the rest for you. Um, the, the the possibilities are really endless, but it requires the workforce to evolve along these evolving technologies. So, what are the trending skills that the workforce can look at? Um, from my perspective, I believe that every organization should look uh, at data, getting good quality, reliable data, well-structured data and learn how to analyze it because data is the new gold. Um, it's the new gold. So if you have good data, you have quality data, and you can glean insight out of your data with all these big data tools and machine learning tools, Internet of Things. You can sensor information, get all the data uh, from the weather, even from structural, from stress, even the how employees are sitting on their chairs and the effect it's having on their bodies, employees' health, employees' well-being, all such information. It's really easy to get all that information to improve the workforce. Um, Cybersecurity is also going to be the next big thing because with all these remote commuting, people working remotely, and with all these reliance on intelligent software, it's important to protect integrity, to protect intellectual property, and to secure the workforce and the work environment. So cybersecurity is going to be really big. Now, as software is taking up a lot of jobs, what is going to mean is that people will have to reinvent themselves and people will have to be innovative. So the innovative aspect of the workforce is going to come to bear. And that means that people are going to be able to venture into new enterprises very quickly with cloud platforms. People can, right from the corner of your room, you can just spin up applications just like that, get to the market, get market insights. It's just going to be fantastic. You can just do virtually anything that you like, and that is what the workforce is going to evolve to. The workforce is going to evolve into more of a creative engine where we imagine the possibilities and get the AIs and the robots to do that work. That ends this presentation. Thank you very much.